Hello. How's it going? I'm Julia, and tonight I'm feeling a little bit called to have a story time, and I'm feeling a touch chilly, so I've got my blanket and my heart-opening tea blend that I recently crafted for myself. But yeah, for whatever reason today, I was just feeling inspired to share a story around some realizations that I had, and some experiences that I had around getting pneumonia and how I was able to heal that and treat that on my own and just using different methods. So, bear with me here. The first time that I got pneumonia, it was actually a short amount of time. I don't know, maybe like a month or so after I had experienced a breakup. So sad. And I had done some research around, like at this point, I had already sort of started to develop my interest in emotions and different body parts and how different like organs or parts of the body will like tend to either create different emotions or that those emotions will sort of manifest in those parts of the body. So at this point, I knew that the lungs tend to harbor grief, or that they are the emotion that will either create or store grief. So, if you're a person who's ever had a lung condition, I would strongly recommend you looking into where you might have unhealed grief in your life. So, from my perspective, like I knew at that time that it was probably related to the like unfelt sadness that I had been experiencing, or like the loss of this relationship that I had just unprocessed, because at that time in my life I wasn't as in touch with actually feeling my emotions. Like I could logic them and I knew that they were there and I knew that I should be feeling sad, or that on some level I'm feeling sad, but had a harder time actually allowing myself to feel those emotions and have them come to the surface and actually like, yeah, just like release them from my body. And so I ended up getting what at first I thought was just a cold, and then it sort of developed and got a little bit worse. And then I noticed that I was like getting a fever and like getting, this is a few years ago, by the way, probably like 5 years ago or something, but had just gotten a lot of like a really bad fever and was like coughing things up a lot, and then the coughing up was like a really gross like green or like something color. And so I called someone, I don't know, like the 811 or whatever number that is, and just sort of asked them like, I don't know what this is, should I like go to the doctor or what? And she was like, yeah, it kind of sounds like you have pneumonia, like maybe go to the hospital and get that checked out. And so I went to the hospital, and it was probably like maybe 2 days or something of me having this experience of like having this phlegminess and like shortness of breath. And at this point as well, like I did have asthma when I was younger, but hadn't had symptoms of asthma probably for like, I don't know, close to 10 years or something at that point. So when I went to the hospital, they had, at first, because I had said that I used to have asthma, they assumed that it was something asthma related and gave me medication like for the asthma, like the um, steroids, I think they are. And yeah, so then I had to like wait a little bit for them to get like an x-ray done, and then they did the x-ray, and then the doctor told me that like confirmed that yes, it is pneumonia, and here, take these like antibiotics, and that should be able to like clear things up for you. And at this point in my life, I had really had some like hesitation with taking antibiotics, because probably 2 years prior, I ended up taking them for something else. It was like, I don't know, like a different like infection or something that I had gotten at that time. And it just like created, like after I took the antibiotics, it created so many other like problems for me that I was just like so like over them and wanted to like was working so hard to like rebuild my immune system and rebuild my like gut bacteria, and was like doing all of these things to just like try to rebuild um my like healthy microbiome in my body and come back to that like homeostasis. And like, I don't know, it was like after I took them the first time, I just kept getting like acne, noticed all these food sensitivities that popped up, and it just didn't make any sense to me until I had talked with it was like a naturopath or a dietitian, and she had asked me like, oh, well, did you take any like antibiotics? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I did. And after that, like after I took them, I just had all these like skin conditions and like allergies, and like all of these things just kept popping up. And so we worked together and recognized that that I just had to rebuild the healthy bacteria in my gut, and started eating more I don't know, like fermented foods, and like adding in I didn't so much do supplements at that time, but doing like probiotics in all of the natural ways that I could, like through sauerkraut, or even like different yogurts, or like kefir, or just like whatever I could find that I knew was going to be either a prebiotic or a probiotic. I was like, yes, I'm adding this into my diet. And so yeah, so when I got this news about like having pneumonia, and the doctor was like, here, take these antibiotics, and it was just like my heart died a little bit on the inside too, because I was like, man, I've been like working for 2 years to build up my immune system again, and now I have to like take these antibiotics that was gonna like, I don't know, I was just like feeling really defeated, and like it was basically like the work that I had done over the last 2 years, just like educating myself and like going full steam, just trying to like be healthy. Like I just felt like it was gonna knock me back down to where I was before. And I just sort of asked him, like, is this really the only way that I can like heal this right now? And at this point, like I was legit like seriously needed something. I mean, yeah, just I don't remember the last time I've actually been that sick. So it was like I was kind of at, what's that expression, at my end's wit or something like that. Just really felt like I needed something fast, and he kind of responded with like, this is what I would prescribe to my child, like I really just like think that you should take them. And so I kind of like, again, feeling very defeated, went and got the prescription, ended up taking the antibiotics, and it did work fairly quickly. It was probably within like 2 days that or even, yeah, probably 2 days that I noticed that like the fever was gone. I wasn't sweating through my sheets anymore. My breathing started to get a lot better, and I was able to heal. Like, yeah, the recovery came a lot faster after that. And um, yeah, so that was the first time that I got pneumonia. And a couple times after that, I mean, okay, so after like that happened, and then I just sort of started that journey again of like rebuilding my immune system, my healthy gut microbiome. It actually really sort of stimulated me to learn even more about how else can we heal different like diseases, or like sicknesses, or viruses, bacterias, whatever, other than just taking antibiotics. Because at this point, I had started working at like a health food store as well, and had just learned about all these other ways that taking antibiotics can be harmful for the body, and how the bacteria in our gut are just so important to our overall health. Like literally affects every part of our body, and we're just like prescribed antibiotics so frequently. That a lot of people don't even like understand what it is to have a healthy microbiome. Even myself, sometimes it's been I don't know, like probably 5 years since I've taken them last, but um, yeah, it's just like it's still a process of making sure that I'm getting enough fermented foods and finding ways to get those like prebiotics, probiotics into my system, doing that on a regular, like daily basis, weekly basis, eating foods that are conducive to just building up like my intestinal system again. And even now, like my digestive isn't like perfect, but it's still something that I'm working on. Um, okay, so fast forward a little bit from the first time that I got pneumonia. The second time that I felt like there was something coming on, like I felt this like burning sensation in my chest again, and I was actually in New York at the time, and of course, I did not purchase like traveler's insurance. So in my mind, I was like, okay, there's no way that I'm like going to the hospital and having to like take the antibiotics again because I'm just like not doing it. There has to be another way. That's kind of what my brain was thinking. And it was kind of interesting as well because in a similar situation, it was coming to like the um, end of like a season. There was like a bit of a breakup that was happening as well. So I was just kind of recognizing the parallels between this situation and the first situation, and just noticing that like heaviness in my chest, that sadness that I was feeling, and that I wasn't really fully connecting with that sadness, what those emotions might have been that I had been experiencing, and just like acknowledging and recognizing that again, grief tends to manifest in the lungs. So I was fully aware of the fact that I wasn't just like allowing myself to process those emotions. And I could just feel that heaviness of like, okay, this energy is stuck. It is like sitting there, it needs to move. What can I do? And while at that point I didn't have it like confirmed that it was pneumonia, because I didn't go to the hospital again, I didn't go and get the x-ray, but I noticed that same sensation, that heaviness, that fever, the like color of the phlegm was starting to darken as well. So I was like, okay, I clearly don't feel well, but what am I going to do about it? I'm not going to the hospital. Like, I don't have insurance. Like, what other means do I have to heal my body? And so what I ended up doing, because I was in the perfect environment for this and had all of the resources available to me, was that I started doing enemas, because I knew in some way as well that if it was an antibiotic that had helped to heal me the first time, like after doing all that research around the bacteria in the body and just knowing how they function, that my intuition was telling me that if I clean out my colon, clean out whatever like food, gunk, junk, whatever I had probably been eating in the last week in anticipation of this like breakup, end of season like thing that I was experiencing, like probably eating from more of an emotional place rather than like oh, I feel nutritious and I want to eat healthy things. Just recognizing and acknowledging that the way that I had been treating my body for that like week prior to this like experience of pneumonia coming on again, that I was like, okay, it's probably something in my intestines, and this is what I have available to me, so I'm just going to do an enema, clear out my body. And this wasn't the first time that I had done an enema either, so I was just like very connected with what the benefits of doing an enema were. And a part of me just knew that that was like what my body needed, that I just like clearing that out would help the experience. And similarly with acupuncture, I think, but I do also know that the lungs and the colon tend to be connected in terms of like how they might manifest certain things. Um, so if you're a person that as well like has asthma, you'll probably have different like food sensitivities or um, I don't know, there's just like a correlation between, I think it's the large intestine and the lungs. That if there's an imbalance in one, there tends to be an imbalance in the other. Um, yeah, so I like for a couple days, I just like did enemas like a couple times a day and like noticed almost instantly that the phlegm in my lungs started to clear up again. I start to feel the heaviness in my chest go away. My fever started to go away. I was just like feeling a lot more alive again, and took that as an opportunity to acknowledge the way that I was eating, acknowledge the emotions that I hadn't processed. And so just like did some journaling, changed my diet, like took a greater look at myself and the way that I was treating myself just to like change that, you know? Um, yeah, and then so that was the first experience that I had of actually like healing that sickness on my own and like with my own methods, just by following my intuition, following um what my guidance system was telling me, what I knew was going to work for me outside of the traditional medical system, even though I know that enemas are sometimes used in that system as well, but whatever. Okay, so the third time that I began to experience symptoms that I felt were um, reminiscent of having pneumonia. And at this point, again, it had been like I'd had those two other experiences, was just feeling like that heaviness in my chest. And again, I was actually traveling again. So even like being away from my family, having that like that distance. And I was in Peru this time. So it's like definitely, and for whatever reasons, I don't recommend people doing this, but I still did not actually get like traveler's insurance. And so, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I don't even like speak the language here. There's no way I'm going to a hospital. Like, I'm gonna find a way to do this myself. Um, but I also didn't really trust the water there, so I didn't super want to do an enema. Um, Especially not for like a couple days, like didn't have any of the equipment for it, and it just like didn't really resonate with me at that time. So, but based on the previous experience that I had had, I knew that it was something that had to do with like my colon and just changing like my microbiome, maybe recognizing the fact that um, yeah, that I like maybe hadn't been eating as clean as I could have been the couple days prior. The elevation change from like just traveling around the altitude, that's what it's called. Yeah, traveling in different areas where it's like really high elevation to really low elevation. Like I knew that that could mess with my immune system as well. And the fact that it was like very rainy on the day that I arrived at this new town. So I think it only took like a couple days. The roommate that I had just left, and I was just like feeling this heaviness again. I think again that like okay, now it's like it's just me. I'm like just when everything settles, um, and it just gives me that moment to sort of check in. Maybe there's like a loneliness that sort of sits in as well or something. But yeah, so again, there was like that heaviness in my chest, like just really feeling like I couldn't breathe well, having like the fever was kind of like kicking in also. But again, I went into like warrior mode and I was like, it's just you, Julia. Like, you got to figure out something to get through this because, like, this is what the options are. So, what are we going to do? This is my internal dialogue. Apparently, I'm a we. Um, So, yeah, I wasn't really trusting the water there, but I knew that they had these like really amazing juice bars. And so for like 3 days straight, I would just go and like the only thing that I would do was like drink these fresh like juice drinks. And I would just go and ask for like garlic and like onions and celery and like parsley. and just like, I think that was more or less it. Like just vegetables, just like really like prebiotic, like probiotic kind of foods. None of those are probiotics, but prebiotics for sure. But like anything that was gonna like flush out my colon, flush out my intestines, and add in those healthy, like healthy bacteria back into my system. And I think I may have put some apple in there also. There may have been apple, but I was really trying to stay away from the sugar. Anything that was going to lower the amount of inflammation that was in my body, anything that was going to boost, boost my immune system, boost the like positive bacteria in my body. And I had done a fair amount of research beforehand on like what would be the best juice to do this. I knew it should be like a green juice. I knew that I just wanted to stay away from sugar completely. And I also had been doing, I got some like fresh eucalyptus as well, and had been doing the like a steam bath kind of thing just to like clear out as much as I could my breath and just like really breathing in that like steam to help loosen up the mucus that was like feeling very heavy in my lungs. I'm just gonna drink some tea. Yeah, so after like 2 days of doing this as well, and like again, in a foreign country, don't speak the language, like don't want to go to a hospital, don't have access to like probiotics if I did want to take them. And I just like knew in my gut that, see, knew that I could find the solution on my own, that I could heal my body on my own, and that I didn't need to rely on like a medication or like a doctor or some other entity thing outside of myself other than what my body was telling me that my body needed. And what my body was telling me was just to eat like fresh foods, like drink as much nutrients, like get as many nutrients in my body as I possibly could. And that's why I decided to juice. That's why I was like doing the steam baths, just like loosening things up, doing what I could, and taking it really easy, just like being easy on myself. Um, that felt so good. Yeah, burping is great. Um, but yeah, and then like 2 or 3 days later, like again, it was just completely gone, didn't have any symptoms anymore. I was feeling back to my normal self. And then again, just like was being very aware of what I was actually eating and being cognizant of how those foods might be affecting my body. So, some things that I have recognized are like flours, wheat specifically, that these things tend to like gum up my digestive system, and that I often get sick. Like I'll just notice like inflammation on my skin more so. My skin will break out. That I do actually just have a harder time breathing. With dairy as well, I've often heard that people who have asthma also, that dairy is just something that will create mucus in the body and make it harder for them to breathe. Um, yeah, and like just little things that I had sort of learned from my own journey, and especially just acknowledging that my lungs do tend to be where I will manifest sickness. I've just done a lot of research into, okay, what are some other ways that I can heal my body and prepare and be very aware of the symptoms that I do experience early on so that they don't progress to where they had that first time that I had pneumonia, because I probably waited like 3 or 4 days before I actually went to the hospital. So I was like, oh, I can, it will go away. Like my body knows how to heal itself. But at that time, I wasn't actually doing anything to heal my body. Like I was just kind of willing myself to like be healthy, but not in a way that was actually conducive to me healing myself. Um, in saying that, there are definitely people and times and situations where you can will yourself to be healthy, and I've done that also. Um, but it also takes an action step, and it also takes like doing something, because while I was also telling myself that I could heal this and I could be healthy, um, there were also all of these like signs and symptoms of like, okay, I'm feeling really heavy, like I have a fever. Like there was just all these counter thoughts that were stopping me from actually creating the health that I wanted for myself at that time, just on the mental level. So there was like that cognitive dissonance around like I can do this, but like I'm not doing it because I feel all these symptoms and it's not working. And like at that time I just didn't really have the proper education to know how to bring myself to that stage of health and awareness, um, without relying on the medical system. Um, yeah, but I've done, like I said, a lot of research since then in terms of the physical aspect of things, the emotional side of things, the cognitive, like mental side of things, like knowing what I actually am capable of. And I do definitely believe that for the last two times that I got pneumonia, it was still my mental state that helped me to heal my body, um, from more of like an internal, empowered kind of place. Because in both of those situations, I knew that like it's just me. Like I have to do this because like this is the option that I have available. So this is going to work. Like I'm going to do everything in my power to make this work. And yeah, I just like had faith that I was trusting my intuition, knew what my body was telling me, and that the steps that I was taking were going to bring me to a greater state of health. Um, yeah, so I don't know why I was feeling particularly called to share that story tonight, but I was, and so I have, and thank you for listening. I would love to hear some of your journey as well. Maybe you've had a similar experience, or maybe you were or are also like me that first time, just feeling really frustrated of like not wanting to take the probiotic antibiotics and not wanting to, um, just like give away your power and put your faith in something that, um, just didn't completely feel aligned for you. I think that's why the last two times that I just knew that there had to be another way. It's like I knew there had to be another way. It just didn't feel completely aligned. Putting like foreign chemicals in my body does not feel aligned for me. Um, and I trust that. Like that's what my body tells me. That's the message that I receive. And so I honor that and respect that. And it hasn't failed me wrong yet. So yeah, that's my story. um yeah, cool. So yeah, just hit me up if you have any questions. I honestly love learning about, different, like, again, like the emotional side of things, the physical side of things, the more natural healing methods. I've basically tried like everything under the sun, from like acupuncture to changing my diet to doing like all of the like different trauma work for various pains and sensations that I've experienced in my body. Um, yeah, but I think that's a different story for a different time. But I also just really love connecting with people and hearing other people's journeys, or maybe you want some help in your journey. Please reach out. Just send me a question, send me a hello, tell me what's up. And yeah. um, cheers. So I hope you're having a beautiful evening. I hope that you are able to find a greater state of health and peace and serenity and love, and that you just also are enjoying the process and the journey and acknowledging that where you are today is where you're meant to be. And yeah, hashtag no regrets. um, Great, cool. That's a lot of ums and ands. I'm just gonna end the video now. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe and just be great. Cheers.